You're born in the darkness, squeezed between a pipe and a wall where the heat never stops. The space is tight, cramped, and exactly what you need. Around you are hundreds of others, all hatching at the same time. Some are already out, their pale bodies moving frantically in every direction. Others are still breaking free from their egg cases, legs pushing through the protective shell your mother left behind weeks ago. Your mother isn't here anymore. She dropped the egg case in this perfect spot and moved on. That's how it works. No family reunions, no parental guidance, just you and the instinct to survive. The moment you break free, you're on your own. Your body is soft, almost transparent, nothing like the hard shell you'll develop later. Right now, you're vulnerable, but you're also fast. The first thing you notice is the smell. It's rich, complex, filled with information you don't even know you understand yet. Food is close. Danger is somewhere else. Other cockroaches have been here before, and their scent tells you this is a safe place to be. You don't think about any of this. You just know. You start moving immediately. Your legs work perfectly, even though you've never used them before. 6 legs, each one gripping the surface as you scurry toward the nearest dark corner. Speed is everything. The slower you move, the more likely you are to become something else's meal. Your siblings are doing the same thing, spreading out in different directions, each one following their own invisible map. Within hours, you've found your first hiding spot. It's a crack between 2 pieces of wood, just wide enough for your body, but too narrow for anything bigger. You press yourself deep inside, feeling the walls on both sides. This is security. This is home, at least for now. But hiding won't keep you alive. You need food, and you need it soon. Your body is burning through energy fast, growing and changing with every hour that passes. The hunger drives you out of your safe space and into the open. You move carefully, staying close to walls, following the scent trails left by others who came before you. Your first meal is a crumb. You don't know what it came from, and you don't care. It's food, and that's all that matters. You tear into it with your mandibles, breaking it down into pieces small enough to swallow. The taste is incredible, not because it's particularly good, but because it's exactly what your body needs. You eat fast, taking in as much as you can before something forces you to move. Then you notice something else nearby. It's another cockroach, slightly bigger than you, working on the same food source. You don't hesitate. You move toward it, mandibles ready. It sees you coming and turns to face you. For a moment, neither of you moves. Then it lunges. The fight is quick and brutal. Your opponent is bigger, but you're faster. You dodge its first attack and counter with your own, clamping down on its leg. It thrashes, trying to shake you off, but you hold tight. The struggle lasts only seconds before it breaks free and runs. You let it go. The food was worth fighting for, but not worth dying for. You finish eating and retreat back to your hiding spot. Your body feels different already. The soft exoskeleton is starting to harden, and your movements are more confident. You're learning the rules of this world. Eat when you can, hide when you must, and never let your guard down. Days pass, and your routine becomes clearer. You venture out in the darkness, searching for food and avoiding anything that might want to eat you. You've learned to recognize the vibrations that mean danger is coming. Heavy footsteps mean humans, and humans mean light, noise, and the possibility of being crushed. You've learned to freeze when those vibrations start, pressing yourself flat against whatever surface you're on until they pass. You've also learned about the other creatures that share your world. Spiders are the worst. They don't make noise when they move, and their webs are invisible until you're already caught. You've had close calls, moments when you barely escaped before the silk could trap you. Each encounter teaches you something new about where to avoid and when to be extra careful, but it's not all fear and hiding. You're getting stronger, more confident in your abilities. Your speed has improved and your senses have sharpened. You can detect food from further away, and you've learned to identify which scraps are worth the risk and which ones to leave alone. Then comes your first molt. You feel it building for days before it happens. Your body becomes tight, uncomfortable, like your skin is shrinking around you. You find a secure hiding spot and wait. The pressure builds until something has to give. Your exoskeleton splits along your back, and you push forward, pulling yourself out of your old shell. The process is exhausting and leaves you completely vulnerable. Your new exoskeleton is soft, pale, and offers no protection. For the next few hours, you're helpless. Any predator that finds you now would have an easy meal, but you survive. And as your new shell hardens, you realize you're bigger, stronger, and more capable than before. This cycle repeats itself multiple times as you grow. Each molt brings new challenges and new abilities. Your body becomes more robust, your reflexes faster, and your understanding of your environment more sophisticated. You learn which areas of your territory are safe and which ones to avoid. You discover the best times to hunt for food and when to stay hidden. You also start encountering other cockroaches more frequently. Most interactions are brief and practical. You might compete for the same food source, or you might ignore each other entirely. But occasionally, you cross paths with one that's clearly established in an area you want to explore. These encounters require careful navigation. Fight too much, and you might get injured. Submit too quickly, and you might miss out on valuable resources. Your world expands as you grow more confident. What started as a small area around your original hiding spot gradually becomes a larger territory that you know intimately. You've mapped every crack, every food source, every potential danger. You know which pipes carry warm water and which ones are cold. You know where humans are most likely to appear and when they're usually asleep. The apartment you live in becomes your universe. The kitchen is a gold mine of opportunities, but it's also the most dangerous area. Humans spend a lot of time there, and they're constantly cleaning, moving things around, and generally making life difficult for you. But the rewards are worth the risk. Crumbs, spills, and forgotten food provide more nutrition than you can find anywhere else. The bathroom is different. It's quieter, with fewer humans, but it offers something just as valuable: water. You've learned to time your visits to the sink and bathtub for when the area is empty. A few drops of water can keep you going for days, and knowing where to find it reliably is crucial for survival. You've also discovered that humans drop things, not just food, but materials you can use. Paper provides fiber when food is scarce. Soap leaves residue that, while not ideal, can sustain you in emergencies. Even dust and dead skin cells become resources when you're desperate enough. But perhaps the most important thing you've learned is patience. Rushing leads to mistakes, and mistakes in your world are often fatal. You've watched other cockroaches get crushed, poisoned, or caught because they moved too quickly or took unnecessary risks. You've learned to wait, to observe, and to act only when the odds are in your favor. Your senses have become incredibly sophisticated. You can detect chemical signals that tell you about food, danger, and other cockroaches from remarkable distances. Your antennae constantly sample the air, providing a stream of information that guides every decision you make. You can feel vibrations through your legs that alert you to approaching threats long before they become visible. The apartment's rhythm has become as familiar to you as your own heartbeat. You know when the humans wake up, when they leave, when they return, and when they go to sleep. You've learned to predict their behavior and plan your activities accordingly. Their routines create windows of opportunity that you've learned to exploit with precision. Your understanding of your environment continues to evolve. You've discovered that certain areas are consistently warmer than others, making them ideal for resting and conserving energy. You've found routes through the walls that allow you to move between rooms without being detected. You've even learned which sounds are harmless and which ones require immediate action. As weeks turn into months, you've become a master of your domain. The soft, vulnerable creature that emerged from the egg case is gone, replaced by a hardened survivor who knows how to thrive in a world that seems designed to kill you. You've learned that success isn't about being the biggest or the strongest. It's about being smart, patient, and adaptable. Your body has changed dramatically since those early days. Your exoskeleton is now thick and durable, providing protection against most threats. Your speed has increased to the point where you can outrun almost any predator you're likely to encounter. Your mandibles are strong enough to process almost any organic material you come across. But survival isn't just about physical capabilities. You've developed a sophisticated understanding of risk and reward that guides every action you take. You know when to fight and when to flee. You know which opportunities are worth pursuing and which ones are traps. You've learned to read the subtle signs that indicate whether a situation is safe or dangerous. The world outside your apartment remains largely unknown, but you've begun to sense that it exists. Sometimes, other cockroaches appear with different scents, suggesting they've traveled from distant places. These encounters hint at a larger world beyond the walls, but for now, your territory provides everything you need to survive and thrive. The scent hits you before you understand what it means. It's different from anything you've encountered before, sweet, complex, and undeniably attractive. Your antennae twitch frantically as you try to process this new information. Something deep in your brain, an instinct you didn't know existed, suddenly activates. Okay, you're 6 months old now, fully mature, and your body is telling you it's time for something you've never experienced. You follow the scent trail, moving more cautiously than usual. This isn't about food or territory. This is something else entirely, something that makes your entire body feel different. The chemical signals grow stronger as you navigate through your familiar routes, but now they're leading you somewhere new. You find her in a narrow space behind the refrigerator, where the warmth from the motor creates a perfect microclimate. She's slightly smaller than you, but moves with the same confidence you've developed over months of survival. When she sees you, she doesn't run. Instead, she turns toward you, her antennae sampling the air between you. The courtship is brief but intense. You approach slowly, tapping your antennae against hers in a complex dance of chemical communication. She responds with subtle movements that you somehow understand perfectly. There's no aggression here, no competition for resources. This is cooperation of a different kind. The mating itself is quick and efficient. Within minutes, it's over, and she's already moving away from you. You don't follow. Some instinct tells you that your role in this interaction has ended. She has what she needs from you, and now she has work to do that doesn't involve you at all. You return to your regular routine, but something has changed. The drive that brought you to her fades quickly, replaced by your usual focus on survival. You don't think about her again, and you don't wonder what comes next. That's her responsibility now, not yours. What you don't know is that she's already begun the process of creating the next generation. Inside her body, your genetic material is combining with hers, forming the foundation for dozens of new lives. She'll spend the next few weeks developing an egg case, carefully crafting a protective shell that will house your offspring for months to come. But that's not your concern anymore. You have your own survival to worry about, and the world hasn't gotten any safer just because you've successfully made it. If anything, the encounter has reminded you that there are other cockroaches in your territory, which means more competition for the resources you depend on. You've noticed changes in your environment recently. The humans seem more aggressive in their cleaning routines. They've started using new chemicals that leave burning scents in the air, chemicals that make your eyes water and your breathing difficult. You've learned to avoid these areas when the smell is fresh, waiting days sometimes before it's safe to return. They've also started sealing cracks and gaps that you've used as highways for months. Your carefully mapped routes suddenly become dead ends, forcing you to find new pathways through unfamiliar territory. Each blocked passage represents loss in time and increased risk as you navigate around obstacles that weren't there before. The kitchen, once a reliable source of food, has become a battleground. The humans have installed new devices that emit sounds you can barely hear, but that make your entire body feel uncomfortable. They've moved their food into sealed containers and started wiping down surfaces with chemicals that burn your feet when you walk across them. But you adapt because that's what you do. You find new hiding spots when old ones become unsafe. You discover alternative food sources when traditional ones disappear. You learn to navigate around the new obstacles and chemicals, always staying one step ahead of the humans' efforts to eliminate you. Your senses have become so refined that you can detect danger from incredible distances. The slightest vibration alerts you to approaching footsteps. The faintest chemical trace warns you of fresh poison. The smallest change in air current tells you when someone has entered a room you're hiding in. You've also learned to exploit the humans' patterns more effectively. You know exactly when they empty their trash, giving you access to fresh scraps. You've figured out which cabinet doors they leave slightly ajar, creating opportunities to explore new food sources. You've discovered that they're less vigilant during certain times of day, making those periods ideal for extended foraging. The apartment's ecosystem has become increasingly complex as you've learned to navigate its dangers and opportunities. You've identified which areas are worth the risk and which ones to avoid entirely. You know where to find water when the usual sources are unavailable. You've even learned to predict when the humans are likely to use their most dangerous cleaning chemicals. Your territory has expanded beyond the original boundaries as you've grown more confident and skilled. What started as a few hiding spots near your birth location has become a network of safe houses connected by carefully scouted routes. You can move from one end of the apartment to the other without ever exposing yourself to direct human observation. The social dynamics of your world have become more apparent as you've encountered other cockroaches more frequently. Some are clearly younger and less experienced, scrambling frantically through territory you navigate with ease. Others are older, moving with the same calculated precision you've developed. Most encounters are brief and practical, but occasionally you meet one that challenges your access to a particularly valuable resource. These confrontations have taught you about dominance and submission in ways you never experienced as a juvenile. Size matters, but so does confidence and experience. You've learned when to stand your ground and when retreat is the better option. Sometimes the cost of fighting exceeds the value of what you're fighting for. You've also begun to understand the broader ecosystem you're part of. The apartment isn't just home to humans and cockroaches. There are spiders in the corners, ants in the walls, and occasional mice that leave trails of their own. Each species has its own patterns and territories, creating a complex web of interactions that you've learned to navigate. The spiders remain your most dangerous predators, but you've developed strategies for dealing with them. You know where they build their webs and when they're most active. You've learned to detect their presence by scent and movement patterns. Most importantly, you've learned that they're ambush predators, which means careful observation can usually help you avoid their traps. A nuisance than a threat, ants are more of, but they compete for many of the same food sources you depend on. You've learned that they work collectively, so encountering one often means there are many more nearby. Sometimes it's better to abandon a food source to them rather than risk getting caught in the middle of their organized activities. The mice are fascinating because they're warm-blooded like the humans, but much smaller and more predictable. They leave scent trails that you've learned to read, and their presence often indicates areas where food scraps are likely to accumulate. They're not direct competitors, but understanding their behavior helps you navigate the apartment more effectively. Your relationship with the humans has evolved into a complex game of cat and mouse. They know you exist, and you know they want you gone, but both sides have learned to coexist within certain boundaries. You avoid their direct attention, and they focus their elimination efforts on areas where you're most visible. You've watched them set traps and lay poison, and you've learned to identify and avoid these hazards. The traps are usually easy to spot because they smell different from the surrounding environment. The poison is trickier because it's often mixed with attractive scents, but you've learned to detect the underlying chemical signatures that mark it as dangerous. The humans' cleaning routines have become predictable enough that you can plan around them. You know which days they're likely to deep clean certain areas, giving you time to relocate temporarily. You've learned that their cleaning is most intensive in areas where they've seen evidence of your presence, so minimizing your visible impact helps keep the pressure manageable. But perhaps the most important thing you've learned is that survival isn't just about avoiding death. It's about maintaining the energy and health needed to continue thriving in an environment that's constantly changing. Every decision you make has to balance immediate needs against long-term sustainability. Your body has reached its full adult size and capabilities, but maintenance requires constant attention. You need regular access to food and water, but you also need periods of rest and safety. You need to molt periodically as your exoskeleton wears down, leaving you temporarily vulnerable. You need to avoid injuries that could compromise your speed or mobility. The rhythm of your daily life has become a careful balance of risk and reward. You venture out when opportunities present themselves, but you're always ready to retreat to safety at the first sign of danger. You've learned that patience is often more valuable than boldness, and that the best opportunities are usually the ones you wait for rather than chase. Your understanding of your environment continues to deepen with each passing day. You notice patterns in temperature, humidity, and air movement that help you predict changes in your surroundings. You've learned to read the subtle signs that indicate when humans are likely to be active or absent. You can detect the approach of seasonal changes that affect food availability and hiding spots. The apartment has become more than just a place to survive. It's become a complex system that you understand intimately, a world where you've carved out your own niche and learned to thrive despite constant challenges. Every corner, every crack, every potential food source is part of a mental map that guides your daily decisions. But you're also beginning to sense that your world is larger than this single apartment. The scents and sounds that drift in from beyond the walls suggest other territories, other opportunities, other challenges. The question is whether the security of your known environment is worth more than the potential rewards of exploring beyond its boundaries. The decision comes suddenly. You're pressed against the baseboard when you feel it, a vibration that's different from anything you've experienced before. It's not the heavy footsteps of humans or the scurrying of other creatures. This is deeper, more mechanical, and it's coming from inside the walls themselves. Something is changing in your world, and your instincts tell you it's time to move. You've survived in this apartment for 8 months now, longer than most of your kind ever manage. But the vibrations are getting stronger, and they're accompanied by new sounds, drilling, hammering, voices discussing plans you can't understand, but somehow know will affect you. The humans are doing something big, something that will reshape your entire territory. Over the next few days, the changes accelerate. Walls that have been solid barriers for your entire life suddenly develop openings. Familiar pathways disappear as furniture gets moved and floors get torn up. The chemical signatures you've relied on for navigation are being erased and replaced with harsh, unfamiliar scents that burn your sensory organs. Your carefully mapped territory becomes a maze of obstacles and hazards. Routes you've used hundreds of times lead nowhere. Hiding spots you've depended on for safety are suddenly exposed to bright lights and human activity. Food sources you've cultivated disappear behind sealed barriers or get contaminated with construction dust and chemicals. But destruction also creates opportunity. The renovation work opens up spaces you've never been able to access before. Behind walls that have been sealed for decades, you discover networks of pipes and conduits that stretch throughout the building. These passages are dark, warm, and largely free of human interference, perfect highways for someone with your skills. You're not the only one taking advantage of these new opportunities. Other cockroaches from different parts of the building are also exploring the open pathways. Some are larger and more aggressive than any you've encountered in your apartment. Others are clearly from different environments entirely, carrying scents that speak of distant territories and unfamiliar food sources. The competition for resources intensifies as your familiar world shrinks and changes. Areas that once supported single individuals now host multiple cockroaches, all trying to establish dominance over the remaining safe spaces. You find yourself in confrontations that are more serious than any you've faced before, fights where retreat isn't always an option. But you've learned from every challenge you've faced, and these skills serve you well now. Your speed allows you to escape from larger opponents when necessary. Your experience reading environmental cues helps you identify the best new territories before others discover them. Most importantly, your patience lets you wait for the right opportunities rather than rushing into dangerous situations. You establish a new base of operations in a space between two walls that the construction has accidentally created. It's larger than any hiding spot you've ever had, with multiple escape routes and access to both water and food sources. The location puts you near several of the new pathways, giving you options for expansion when the opportunity arises. The humans' renovation project continues for weeks, creating constant chaos, but also revealing the larger structure you're part of. You begin to understand that your apartment is just one small section of a much larger building, and that building is connected to others through an underground network of pipes and tunnels that stretch further than you can imagine. For the first time in your life, you seriously consider leaving the territory you know. The pathways you've discovered lead to other apartments, other buildings, other worlds entirely. Some of the scents drifting through these passages suggest environments with different challenges and opportunities, places where the competition might be less intense or the food sources more abundant. But exploration means risk, and you've survived this long by being cautious about unnecessary risks. The territory you know may be changing, but it's still familiar. You understand its dangers and opportunities in ways that would take months or years to develop elsewhere. The question is whether the changes happening around you will make your current location unsustainable. The answer comes sooner than expected. The construction reaches your section of the building, and suddenly your world is filled with bright lights, loud noises, and humans who are actively looking for creatures like you. Your hiding spots are systematically destroyed or sealed off. The pathways you use for food gathering become exposed and dangerous. Even your new base between the walls gets discovered and filled with expanding foam that nearly traps you inside. You barely escape, squeezing through a gap that closes behind you as the foam hardens. For the first time since your earliest days, you find yourself with nowhere to go and no safe place to rest. The apartment that has been your entire world is becoming uninhabitable, at least for now. The decision to leave isn't really a decision at all. It's survival instinct taking over. You enter one of the pathways you've been exploring and commit to following it wherever it leads. The passage is dark and narrow, exactly the kind of environment you're built for, but it's also completely unfamiliar. Every scent is new, every sound is different, and every step takes you further from everything you know. The journey through the building's infrastructure reveals a hidden world that's both fascinating and terrifying. You encounter other species you've never seen before, insects that have adapted to life in complete darkness, spiders that have built webs across entire pipe junctions, even small mammals that have made homes in the spaces between floors. Some of these encounters are hostile. You narrowly escape from a spider whose web spans an entire section of pipe, forcing you to backtrack and find an alternative route. You dodge past a rat that's clearly territorial about the tunnel you're trying to use. You even encounter another cockroach that's significantly larger than you and doesn't seem interested in sharing the pathway. But you also discover resources you never knew existed. Condensation from pipes provides clean water in quantities you've never seen. Organic debris that accumulates in certain junctions offers food sources that are completely different from what you're used to. The temperature regulation in these spaces is more consistent than anything in your old territory. After hours of travel through passages that seem to stretch endlessly, you finally emerge into a new environment. It's another apartment, but everything about it is different from the one you left. The scents are unfamiliar, the layout is different, and the patterns of human activity follow completely different rhythms. The apartment is also already occupied by cockroaches. You can smell them immediately, at least a dozen individuals with established territories and social hierarchies. Some are clearly juveniles, moving with the frantic energy you remember from your own early days. Others are adults like yourself, confident and territorial about their claims to the best resources. Your arrival doesn't go unnoticed. Within minutes, you're confronted by what appears to be the dominant individual in this territory, a cockroach that's not only larger than you, but also bears the scars of numerous fights. The message is clear. You're not welcome here, and you need to either submit to the existing order or leave immediately. The confrontation that follows is unlike anything you've experienced. Your opponent is not just bigger and stronger, it's also fighting for territory It's held for a long time, while you're exhausted from your journey and operating in an unfamiliar environment. The fight is brief and decisive. You're clearly outmatched, and retreat is your only option. But retreating doesn't mean giving up. You've learned enough about survival to know that direct confrontation isn't always the best strategy. Instead, you withdraw to the edges of the territory, looking for opportunities to establish yourself without challenging the established order directly. You discover that the apartment's ecosystem is more complex than your old territory. The cockroaches here have developed specialized roles and territories that minimize direct competition. Some focus on the kitchen and food sources, others control access to water, and still others have claimed the safest hiding spots. It's a more organized society than anything you've seen before. Finding your place in this hierarchy requires careful observation and patience. You identify areas that are less actively defended, resources that are underutilized, and gaps in the existing territorial claims that you might be able to exploit. It's not about fighting your way to the top. It's about finding a niche where you can survive and eventually thrive. Your experience and skills from your original territory prove valuable in ways you didn't expect. While the local cockroaches know their environment intimately, you bring knowledge of different survival strategies and problem-solving approaches. You're able to access food sources they've overlooked and navigate hazards they haven't learned to handle. Gradually, you begin to establish yourself in the new environment. You find a hiding spot that's secure, but doesn't encroach on anyone else's prime territory. You develop routes to food and water that don't interfere with the established pathways used by the dominant individuals. Most importantly, you learn the social rules that govern interactions in this more complex community. The process takes weeks, but eventually you're no longer seen as an intruder. The other cockroaches acknowledge your presence without hostility, and you begin to participate in the subtle social dynamics that govern resource sharing and territory maintenance. You've successfully integrated into a new world. But integration comes with new challenges and responsibilities. The social structure that provides stability also creates obligations. When threats arise, everyone is expected to contribute to the community's defense. When resources become scarce, sharing follows established protocols that favor the most dominant individuals. When conflicts arise, they're resolved through complex negotiations rather than simple fights. You also discover that this apartment is part of an even larger network of territories and communities. Cockroaches regularly travel between different apartments in the building, carrying information and resources between communities. Some individuals specialize in these long-distance journeys, becoming essentially traders and messengers in an economy you're only beginning to understand. The humans in used to, they're more systematic in their cleaning route. This apartment presents different challenges than the ones you're in, but also more predictable. They use different chemicals and set different types of traps, requiring you to learn new avoidance strategies. They also have different schedules and habits, creating different windows of opportunity for foraging. Your new environment is also more stable than your old territory was during the renovation period. The infrastructure is older and more settled, with established pathways and hiding spots that have been used by generations of cockroaches. There's a sense of permanence here that was missing from your previous home during its final chaotic weeks. As you settle into your new life, you begin to appreciate the advantages of being part of a larger community. Information travels quickly through the network of individuals, warning everyone about new threats and opportunities. Resources are more efficiently utilized because multiple individuals can coordinate their efforts. Most importantly, the community provides a form of security that individual survival strategies can't match. But you also recognize that your survival skills remain essential. The community provides advantages, but it doesn't eliminate the fundamental challenges of staying alive in a hostile environment. You still need to be fast, alert, and adaptable. You still need to compete for resources and avoid predators. The difference is that now you have allies and information sources that make these challenges more manageable. Your integration into this new world represents more than just finding a place to survive. It's an evolution in your understanding of what it means to be a cockroach. You've learned that individual survival is just at the beginning, that true success comes from finding your place in the larger ecosystem of relationships and resources that define your species' existence. The scents, sounds, and rhythms of your new territory gradually become as familiar as your original home once was. You develop new routines, establish new pathways, and build new relationships. The apartment that seemed so foreign and threatening when you first arrived becomes another world that you understand intimately and navigate with confidence. But perhaps most importantly, you've learned that change is not just something to survive. It's something that can lead to growth and opportunity. The renovation that forced you from your original territory ultimately led you to a larger, more complex, and more interesting world. The challenge of integration taught you new skills and gave you new perspectives on what's possible. Your journey from your birth location to this new community represents a kind of coming of age. You've grown from a vulnerable juvenile focused purely on individual survival to an adult capable of participating in the complex social and economic networks that define your species' success, larger and more interconnected than you originally. You've learned that the world is much understood. Your understanding of this complex world continues to deepen as seasons change around you. The apartment's rhythm shifts with the weather outside, bringing new challenges you never faced in your original territory. During the colder months, the humans adjust their heating patterns, creating warm zones near radiators and vents that become prime real estate among your community. Competition for these spots intensifies, but you've learned to identify alternative heat sources that others overlook. The social dynamics become more intricate as you spend more time in this established community. You've discovered that information is currency here. Knowing which areas the humans have recently cleaned, where fresh food sources have appeared, or when new hazards have been introduced, gives you significant advantages. You've started participating in the subtle chemical communication network that keeps everyone informed about important developments. Your role in this community has evolved from newcomer to valuable contributor. Your experience navigating the building's infrastructure during your journey here has made you useful to others planning their own territorial expansions. You've become something of a guide for cockroaches looking to explore new areas, sharing knowledge about the pathways and hazards that connect different parts of the building. But your success has also attracted attention from individuals higher in the hierarchy. The dominant cockroach that initially drove you away has begun to take notice of your growing influence. This creates tension that you navigate carefully, balancing your desire for better resources against the need to avoid direct confrontation with someone who could easily overpower you. The solution comes through alliance rather than conflict. You've identified other cockroaches in similar positions, individuals with valuable skills but limited access to the best territories. Together, you've formed an informal coalition that shares information and resources while avoiding direct challenges to the established order. This cooperation allows all of you to improve your situations without threatening those at the top. Your coalition's success doesn't go unnoticed by the community's leadership. Rather than seeing you as a threat, the dominant individuals begin to recognize the benefits of having organized, reliable allies. Your group's efficiency at gathering information and resources makes the entire community more successful, which ultimately benefits everyone. This recognition leads to new opportunities and responsibilities. When threats arise, like the appearance of a new spider in a critical pathway or the humans introducing a different type of poison, your coalition is often the first to investigate and develop countermeasures. Your collective experience and diverse skills make you particularly effective at solving problems that individual cockroaches might struggle with. The building's ecosystem continues to reveal new layers of complexity as your understanding grows. You've learned that the cockroach communities in different apartments specialize in different activities. Some focus on food processing, breaking down organic materials into forms that can be more easily transported and stored. Others specialize in reconnaissance, maintaining detailed knowledge of human patterns and environmental changes. Your apartment has become known for its expertise in navigation and territorial expansion. The pathways and hidden spaces you've mapped during your integration period have made your community particularly skilled at accessing new areas and establishing outposts in previously unexplored territories. This specialization has increased your community's influence within the building's larger network. Trade relationships have developed between communities, with different apartments exchanging resources and information based on their specializations. You've participated in several of these exchanges, traveling through the infrastructure you first discovered during your escape from the renovation. These journeys have given you a broader understanding of the building's full scope and complexity. The humans remain largely unaware of this sophisticated network operating within their building. Their efforts to eliminate cockroaches focus on individual apartments and visible infestations, missing the larger organizational structure that allows your species to thrive despite their best efforts. This blind spot in their understanding has become a significant advantage for your communities. Your own expertise has become increasingly specialized as well. You've developed an exceptional ability to predict and navigate around human cleaning routines, making you valuable for missions into heavily monitored areas. Your experience with different types of hazards, from the construction chemicals in your original territory to the various poisons and traps you've encountered since, has made you something of an expert in risk assessment. The physical demands of your lifestyle have continued to shape your development. Your body has adapted to the constant movement and stress of community life, becoming even more efficient at the rapid movements and split-second decisions that define your existence. Your senses have become so refined that you can detect subtle changes in your environment that others miss entirely. But perhaps the most significant change has been in your understanding of time and planning. Where your early life was focused entirely on immediate survival, finding food, avoiding danger, securing shelter, you now think in terms of long-term strategy. You consider how current actions will affect future opportunities, how relationships built today will provide advantages tomorrow. This longer-term perspective has made you more effective at resource management. Instead of consuming everything you find immediately, you've learned to cache supplies in strategic locations. You know which food sources are reliable over time and which ones are likely to disappear. You've developed backup plans for various scenarios, from human intervention to seasonal changes. Your success in this complex environment has also awakened new instincts and desires. The drive that led you to mate months ago in your original territory has returned, but now it's informed by a much deeper understanding of what successful reproduction means in your species. It's not just about finding a partner, it's about ensuring that offspring have the best possible chances of survival in an increasingly complex world. The females in your current community are different from the one you encountered before. They're more selective, more socially connected, and more aware of the resources and protection that different males can offer. Courtship here involves demonstrating not just individual fitness, but social status and community connections as well. You've begun the careful process of establishing yourself as a desirable partner. This involves not just maintaining your physical condition and territorial claims, but also building the kinds of relationships and reputation that signal long-term stability and success. It's a more sophisticated game than simple attraction and availability. The competition for mating opportunities is intense, involving cockroaches who have spent their entire lives in this established community and understand its social dynamics far better than you do. Your advantage lies in the unique experiences and skills you've brought from outside, combined with the alliances you've built since arriving. Your coalition partners have become valuable allies in this competition as well. Their support and endorsement carry weight in the community's social calculations. The cooperative relationships you've built for survival and resource gathering now serve additional purposes in the complex negotiations of reproductive success. The process of courtship in this environment is extended and multifaceted. Unlike your previous brief encounter, these interactions involve weeks of careful positioning, demonstration of capabilities, and gradual building of trust and attraction. Success requires patience, strategic thinking, and careful attention to social dynamics. Your understanding of the building's larger network has become an asset in these courtship efforts. Females are impressed by your knowledge of distant territories and alternative resources. Your experience navigating different environments and communities suggests adaptability and problem-solving skills that would benefit potential offspring. The relationships you've built with cockroaches from other apartments have also enhanced your reputation. When individuals from other communities visit your territory, they often seek you out specifically, recognizing your expertise and connections. This visibility has elevated your status within your own community, but success in courtship also brings new responsibilities and risks. Mated females in this community don't simply disappear after reproduction like in your previous experience. They remain active community members, and their reproductive success affects the entire group's dynamics and resource requirements. Your growing influence in community affairs has also attracted the attention of the building's maintenance systems in ways you didn't anticipate. The humans have noticed increased cockroach activity in your apartment and have responded with more intensive elimination efforts. Your community's success has inadvertently made it a target. The new threats require adaptive strategies that test everything you've learned about survival and leadership. The poisons are more sophisticated, the traps are placed more strategically, and the cleaning routines are more thorough. Your community needs to evolve its tactics to stay ahead of these escalating countermeasures. Your experience with different types of human intervention has made you particularly valuable during this crisis. You've encountered most of these elimination methods before, either in your original territory or during your travels through the building. Your knowledge of how to detect and avoid these hazards has become crucial for community survival, The pressure has also strengthened the bonds within your coalition and the broader community. Shared challenges create solidarity, and your group's effectiveness at protecting everyone from the new threats has solidified your leadership position. Crisis has a way of clarifying who can be relied upon when survival is at stake. Your role as a guide and protector has evolved into something approaching genuine leadership. Other cockroaches look to you for decisions about when to move, where to hide, and how to respond to new threats. The responsibility is both gratifying and terrifying. Your choices now affect not just your own survival, but the survival of individuals who depend on your judgment. The building's infrastructure has become even more important as the humans intensify their efforts. The pathways and hidden spaces that initially served as escape routes during your journey here have become crucial highways for avoiding detection and accessing resources safely. Your intimate knowledge of these routes has become one of your most valuable assets. Your community's response to the increased pressure has been to become more organized and systematic. Information sharing has become more formalized, with specific individuals responsible for monitoring different aspects of the environment. Resource distribution has become more coordinated, ensuring that everyone has access to necessary supplies, even when foraging becomes more dangerous. The cooperation between different communities in the building has also intensified in response to the humans' building-wide elimination efforts. What started as occasional trade relationships has evolved into a more formal alliance, with coordinated responses to threats and shared intelligence about human activities. Your expertise in intercommunity relations has made you a key figure in these broader negotiations. Your credibility with multiple groups, combined with your knowledge of the building's layout, has positioned you as something approaching a diplomat between territories. It's a role you never could have imagined when you first hatched in that narrow space behind a pipe. The complexity of your current life sometimes makes you remember those early days with a mixture of nostalgia and amazement. The simple focus on individual survival seems almost quaint compared to the intricate web of relationships, responsibilities, and strategic considerations that now define your existence. But the fundamental skills that kept you alive during those vulnerable early months remain essential. Speed, alertness, adaptability, and careful risk assessment are still the foundation of everything you do. The difference is that now these individual capabilities serve larger purposes and operate within more sophisticated frameworks. Your body has continued to adapt to the demands of your lifestyle. The constant movement, the stress of leadership responsibilities, and the physical challenges of navigating increasingly dangerous territory have pushed your capabilities to their limits. You're faster, stronger, and more resilient than you've ever been. The mental demands have been equally transformative. The simple pattern recognition and instinctive responses that guided your early survival have evolved into complex analytical capabilities. You can process multiple streams of information simultaneously, predict human behavior patterns, and develop multi-step strategic plans. Your understanding of your species' place in the building's ecosystem has become increasingly sophisticated. You recognize that cockroaches aren't just survivors hiding in the margins. You're integral participants in a complex biological and social system that extends far beyond what the humans realize. The building itself has become more than just a habitat. It's a world with its own geography, climate, politics, and economy. Your journey from a single apartment to community leadership has given you perspective on this world's full scope and complexity. You understand connections and relationships that most individuals never recognize. Your influence now extends beyond your immediate community to affect decisions and developments throughout the building's cockroach population. The alliances you've built, the expertise you've developed, and the reputation you've established have made you a significant figure in this hidden civilization. But success also brings awareness of larger threats and challenges that exist beyond the building itself. The humans' elimination efforts are part of broader patterns that affect cockroach populations across entire cities and regions. Your local victories occur within contexts of much larger struggles for survival and territory. The question of what comes next has become more complex as your influence and responsibilities have grown. Individual survival, which once seemed like the ultimate achievement, is now just the foundation for larger questions about community leadership, species survival, and long-term adaptation to an increasingly hostile world. Your story continues to unfold within this intricate web of relationships and challenges, but the simple cockroach that emerged from an egg case in a cramped space behind a pipe has become something much more significant: a leader, strategist, and guardian of a complex community's survival and success. The seasons continue to cycle through the building, and with each change comes new challenges that test your leadership and adaptability. Winter brings a different kind of crisis. The humans reduce their heating to save money, creating temperature drops that slow your metabolism and make movement more difficult. The community must reorganize around the few remaining warm zones, creating overcrowding that strains social relationships and resource distribution. Your experience managing territorial disputes becomes crucial as space becomes scarce. You've learned to mediate conflicts between individuals who would normally avoid each other, finding creative solutions that allow maximum utilization of limited warm spaces without triggering violent confrontations. The diplomatic skills you developed through intercommunity relations now serve your own group's internal stability. Food sources also become more challenging during the cold months. The humans seal windows and doors more tightly, reducing the influx of organic material from outside. Kitchen scraps become more valuable, but the increased competition makes accessing them more dangerous. Your knowledge of alternative food sources, the organic debris in wall spaces, the residue around pipe joints, even the glue from old construction materials, becomes essential for community survival. The cold also affects the building's infrastructure in ways that create both opportunities and hazards. Pipes that condensed water during warmer months now freeze, eliminating reliable water sources, but also creating new pathways as the expanding ice cracks joints and opens previously sealed spaces. Your expertise in navigation becomes even more valuable as familiar routes change and new ones appear. Your coalition has evolved into something resembling a formal council, with different members specializing in various aspects of community management. One focuses on food procurement and distribution, another monitors human activity patterns, and a third maintains relationships with other communities throughout the building. Your role has become coordination and strategic planning, synthesizing information from multiple sources to guide community decisions. The responsibilities of leadership have changed your daily routine dramatically. Where you once focused primarily on your own foraging and territory maintenance, you now spend most of your time gathering information, mediating disputes, and planning responses to emerging challenges. It's exhausting work that requires constant vigilance and decision-making, but leadership also provides satisfactions that individual survival never offered. Seeing your community thrive despite increasing challenges gives you a sense of purpose that goes beyond personal success. The knowledge that your decisions protect and benefit others creates meaning that pure self-preservation lacks. Your reputation has spread throughout the building's network, making you a recognized figure, even in communities you've never visited. Other leaders seek your advice on complex problems, and your strategic recommendations carry weight in building-wide decisions. This influence brings both opportunities and dangers. Success makes you a target for rivals and a focus of human elimination efforts. The humans have indeed begun to notice patterns that suggest organized cockroach activity. Their response has become more systematic and coordinated, with building management hiring professional exterminators who understand more about your species' social behavior than the residents realize. These specialists use different tactics that specifically target communication networks and social structures. Your community's survival now depends on staying ahead of these more sophisticated threats. The exterminators use chemical markers to trace movement patterns, employ baits that exploit social feeding behaviors, and time their interventions to disrupt reproductive cycles. Every advantage your species has developed through social organization becomes a potential vulnerability. Adaptation requires fundamental changes to behaviors that have served your community well for months. Communication patterns must become more subtle and indirect to avoid detection. Resource distribution needs to be less centralized to prevent targeted disruption. Even your leadership structure must become more fluid and less visible to human observation. The stress of constant adaptation affects everyone differently. Some community members thrive under pressure, becoming more creative and resourceful as challenges intensify. Others struggle with the uncertainty and increased demands, requiring additional support and guidance to maintain their contributions to group survival. Your own response to this pressure has been to become more systematic and analytical in your approach to problem solving. Every decision is evaluated for its long-term consequences. Every action is planned with multiple contingencies. The intuitive responses that guided your early survival have evolved into complex strategic thinking. The building's cockroach communities have also adapted their intergroup relationships to address the coordinated human threat. What began as loose trade relationships has evolved into a formal alliance with shared intelligence, coordinated responses, and mutual defense agreements. Your role as a diplomat has become even more crucial as these partnerships deepen. The alliance's first major test comes when the exterminators target the building's main water distribution system with a systematic poisoning program. The chemicals they use are designed to contaminate the condensation sources that multiple communities depend on, creating a crisis that threatens the entire building's cockroach population. Your response demonstrates the strategic thinking that has made you an effective leader. Instead of competing with other communities for the remaining safe water sources, you propose a coordinated rationing system that ensures everyone has access while the contamination is addressed. The proposal requires sophisticated logistics and unprecedented cooperation between traditionally independent groups. Implementation of the water sharing program tests every relationship and alliance you've built over the past year. Communities must trust each other with information about their most critical resources, coordinate movements through territories that have been jealously guarded, and follow distribution schedules that require precise timing and discipline. Your reputation for fair dealing and strategic competence becomes crucial for maintaining cooperation as the program faces inevitable challenges. Disputes arise over allocation formulas. Scheduling conflicts create tensions between groups, and the constant pressure of human surveillance makes coordination increasingly difficult. But the program succeeds, demonstrating that coordinated action can overcome challenges that would devastate individual communities. The experience creates bonds between groups that extend far beyond the immediate crisis, establishing precedents for cooperation that strengthen the entire building's resilience. Your leadership during the water crisis elevates your status throughout the network, but it also makes you a primary target for the exterminator's attention. They've identified the coordination patterns that made the response possible and are now focusing their efforts on disrupting the communication networks that enable such cooperation. The personal risk forces you to adapt your own behavior in ways that sometimes conflict with your leadership responsibilities. Maintaining the visibility needed to coordinate community activities increases your exposure to human detection, but withdrawing too far from active involvement undermines your effectiveness as a leader. The solution requires developing new forms of indirect leadership that influence events without requiring direct participation. You begin training other community members to handle routine coordination tasks, creating backup systems that can function even if you become unavailable, and establishing communication protocols that don't depend on your physical presence. This evolution toward distributed leadership strengthens the community's overall resilience while reducing your personal risk. But it also represents a significant change in your role and identity. The hands-on leadership that brought you to prominence must give way to more subtle forms of influence and guidance. The transition is emotionally challenging in ways you didn't anticipate. The direct engagement with community problems provided immediate feedback and clear measures of success. Indirect influence is harder to evaluate and less personally satisfying, even when it's more effective for achieving long-term objectives. Your understanding of leadership itself has evolved through this process. What once seemed like a matter of making good decisions and inspiring others to follow has revealed itself as a complex web of relationships, systems, and adaptive strategies. Effective leadership requires not just solving problems, but building the capacity for others to solve problems independently. The building's ecosystem continues to evolve as both human and cockroach populations adapt to each other's strategies. The arms race between extermination efforts and survival tactics creates constant pressure for innovation and adaptation on both sides. Your communities have developed increasingly sophisticated countermeasures to human elimination efforts. Chemical detection systems warn of new poisons before they can cause casualties. Communication networks share information about exterminator schedules and tactics. Resource stockpiling reduces dependence on contaminated or monitored sources. But the humans have also learned from their failures, developing new approaches that exploit different aspects of cockroach behavior and biology. They've begun using ultrasonic devices that disrupt communication, introducing biological agents that target specific life stages, and employing surveillance technologies that can track individual movement patterns. The escalating sophistication of the conflict has transformed your role once again. Strategic planning must now account for increasingly complex variables and longer-term consequences. Every tactical success must be evaluated for its potential to reveal information that humans could use to develop new countermeasures. Your expertise in risk assessment has become more valuable than ever as the stakes of every decision increase. A single mistake in judgment could compromise not just your own community, but the entire building's network of allied groups. The responsibility is both exhilarating and terrifying. The pressure has also strengthened your understanding of what makes some strategies successful while others fail. Effective approaches must be sustainable over long periods, resilient to disruption, and adaptable to changing circumstances. Short-term victories that compromise long-term viability are ultimately counterproductive. Your community's success has attracted attention from cockroach populations in neighboring buildings, creating opportunities for even broader cooperation and resource sharing. The network that began within a single building is expanding into something that resembles a regional alliance with coordinated strategies and shared intelligence. This expansion brings new challenges that test your diplomatic and strategic skills at unprecedented scales. Different buildings have different environmental conditions, human behaviors, and established cockroach social structures. Creating effective cooperation across such diversity requires understanding and accommodating numerous competing interests and priorities. Your reputation as a successful leader and strategist has made you a key figure in these broader negotiations. Other leaders seek your input on complex problems and look to your communities as models for effective organization and adaptation. The influence is gratifying, but also creates expectations and pressures that sometimes conflict with your primary responsibility to your own community. The broader network's development has also revealed the existence of threats and opportunities that extend far beyond your immediate experience. Human extermination efforts are coordinated at city and regional levels, requiring equally coordinated responses from cockroach populations. Environmental changes affect entire metropolitan areas, creating challenges that no single community can address independently. Your understanding of your species' situation has expanded from local survival to participation in what amounts to a civilization-scale struggle for adaptation and persistence. The individual cockroach that once focused entirely on finding food and avoiding predators has become part of something much larger and more significant. The complexity of your current existence sometimes makes you reflect on the journey that brought you here, from hatching in a cramped space behind a pipe to coordinating strategies that affect thousands of individuals across multiple buildings, represents a transformation that would have been unimaginable in those early days of simple survival. But the fundamental drives and capabilities that enabled your initial survival remain essential to everything you do now. The speed, alertness, and adaptability that kept you alive as a vulnerable juvenile are the same qualities that make you effective as a community leader and strategic planner. Your body has adapted to the demands of your current role, developing the stamina needed for extended planning sessions and the resilience required for high-stress decision-making. The physical capabilities that once focused entirely on individual survival now serve broader purposes that benefit entire communities. The mental evolution has been even more dramatic. The pattern recognition and risk assessment skills that guided your early foraging have developed into sophisticated analytical capabilities that can process complex information from multiple sources and identify strategic opportunities that others miss. Your emotional development has been perhaps the most unexpected aspect of your transformation. The purely self-focused mindset of early survival has expanded to include genuine concern for community welfare and species success. The satisfaction you derive from others' success often exceeds what you feel from your own achievements. These changes have created a form of meaning and purpose that transcends individual survival. Your existence is no longer just about staying alive. It's about contributing to something larger that will persist beyond your individual lifespan. The community and network you've helped build will continue to evolve and adapt long after you're gone. The knowledge that your efforts contribute to your species' long-term success provides a form of fulfillment that pure self-preservation never offered. Every challenge overcome, every crisis navigated, every alliance built adds to a legacy that extends far beyond individual achievement. Your story continues to unfold within this expanding web of relationships and responsibilities, but the simple drive for survival that began your journey has evolved into something much more complex and meaningful. You've become not just a successful individual, but a contributor to your species' ongoing adaptation and evolution. The building around you pulses with the activity of hundreds of individuals whose lives have been touched by the strategies and systems you've helped create. The hidden civilization that exists within the walls grows stronger and more sophisticated with each challenge it faces and overcomes. Your influence within this network has created responsibilities you never anticipated when you first crawled out of that egg case. The decisions you make now ripple through communities across multiple buildings, affecting survival strategies that will shape your species' future in this urban environment. But with that influence comes scrutiny from threats you're only beginning to understand. The humans have evolved their approach beyond simple extermination. They've brought in specialists who study your species with the same intensity you've learned to study them. These researchers understand social structures, communication patterns, and resource distribution in ways that make them far more dangerous than the maintenance workers who once posed your greatest threat. Your communities face a new kind of warfare, one that targets the very cooperation and organization that made you successful. The specialists introduce chemical agents designed to disrupt pheromone communication, deploy monitoring devices that track movement patterns across entire buildings, and time their interventions to coincide with critical reproductive and resource sharing cycles. The response requires rethinking everything your network has built over months of careful development. Communication systems that once seemed secure become liabilities when they can be monitored and decoded. Resource distribution networks that efficiently served multiple communities become pathways for targeted contamination. Even your leadership structure becomes a vulnerability when humans learn to identify and eliminate key decision makers. Adaptation demands sacrifices that test the bonds you've worked so hard to create. Communities must become more independent, reducing the coordination that made them resilient. Information sharing must become more limited, protecting critical intelligence, but reducing everyone's situational awareness. Leadership must become more distributed, diluting decision-making authority to prevent targeted disruption. You find yourself orchestrating your own obsolescence, designing systems that can function without the centralized coordination that brought you to prominence. It's strategically necessary, but personally devastating to watch the network you helped build fragment back into smaller, more isolated units. The process forces you to confront questions about leadership and legacy that go far beyond immediate survival. Is it better to maintain systems that work well but can be destroyed, or to create more resilient but less efficient alternatives? Should leaders focus on maximizing current success or on building capacity that can survive their own elimination? Your answer comes through observing how different communities respond to the increased pressure. Those that remain too dependent on centralized leadership collapse when key individuals are eliminated. But those that have developed distributed decision-making capabilities adapt more quickly to changing threats and recover faster from disruptions. The lesson transforms your approach to leadership once again. Instead of making decisions for others, you focus on building their capacity to make good decisions independently. Instead of coordinating activities directly, you create frameworks that allow coordination to emerge naturally. Instead of being indispensable, you work to make yourself unnecessary. This evolution requires suppressing instincts that served you well during your rise to prominence. The drive to control outcomes must give way to trust in others' capabilities. The satisfaction of direct involvement must be replaced by the subtler rewards of enabling others' success. The clear feedback of hands-on leadership must be exchanged for the uncertain progress of systemic change. The transformation is especially challenging because it occurs while external pressures continue to intensify. The human specialists have expanded their efforts to include psychological warfare, introducing stressors designed to disrupt social bonds and create competition between allied communities. They've learned that destroying cooperation is often more effective than direct elimination. Your network faces its greatest test when the specialists introduce a contaminated food source designed to create conflicts over resources. The contamination doesn't kill immediately. Instead, it creates subtle behavioral changes that increase aggression and reduce cooperative instincts. Communities that have worked together for months suddenly find themselves in territorial disputes over areas they once shared peacefully. The crisis threatens to unravel everything your network has accomplished. Communities begin hoarding resources, sharing less information, and viewing former allies with suspicion. The cooperative frameworks you've spent months building start collapsing as trust erodes and competition intensifies. Your response demonstrates the strategic thinking that has made you effective despite the mounting challenges. Rather than trying to restore the old systems through direct intervention, you work to help communities understand what's happening to them. You share information about the contamination's effects, provide frameworks for recognizing and countering the behavioral changes, and create new protocols for maintaining cooperation despite increased suspicion. The approach requires patience and subtlety that tests your leadership skills in new ways. You can't simply tell communities what to do. They're too suspicious for that to work. Instead, you must provide information and tools that allow them to reach the right conclusions independently, maintaining their autonomy while guiding them toward cooperative solutions. Success comes slowly and unevenly. Some communities recognize the manipulation quickly and adapt their behaviors accordingly. Others struggle with the artificial aggression for weeks before regaining their cooperative instincts. A few are so badly affected that they withdraw from the network entirely, choosing isolation over the risk of continued conflict. But the network survives, and in some ways emerges stronger than before. The communities that successfully navigate the crisis develop greater resilience to future manipulation attempts. They learn to recognize artificial influences on their behavior and develop countermeasures that protect their decision-making processes. Your role in this success is largely invisible, which is exactly what you intended. The communities that overcame the crisis believe they did so through their own efforts and insights. The frameworks you provided seem like natural extensions of their existing capabilities. The information you shared feels like collective discoveries rather than external guidance. This invisibility represents a new form of leadership success. Your influence shapes outcomes without creating dependencies. Your guidance improves capabilities without undermining autonomy. Your support enables success without generating obligations or expectations. The experience also reveals something important about your own evolution. The satisfaction you derive from others' independent success exceeds what you once felt from direct achievement. Watching communities solve problems you helped them prepare for provides deeper fulfillment than solving those problems yourself ever did. Your understanding of effective leadership has become increasingly sophisticated through these experiences. The most powerful influence often operates below conscious awareness, shaping contexts and capabilities rather than directing specific actions. The most sustainable success emerges from others' genuine capabilities rather than from external coordination or control. These insights guide your approach to the next challenge your network faces. The human specialists have begun targeting the building's infrastructure itself, introducing changes designed to disrupt the pathways and spaces that enable cockroach movement and communication. They're essentially reshaping the environment to make cooperation more difficult and isolation more necessary. Your response focuses on helping communities develop greater adaptability rather than trying to preserve existing systems. You share knowledge about alternative pathways, provide information about new navigation techniques, and create frameworks for rapidly adapting to environmental changes. The approach proves prescient when the infrastructure modifications accelerate beyond what anyone anticipated. Entire sections of the building become inaccessible overnight. Familiar pathways disappear behind sealed barriers. Critical resource areas get contaminated or physically altered beyond recognition. Communities that focused on preserving old systems struggle with the rapid changes, but those that developed adaptability capabilities adjust quickly to new conditions, finding alternative routes and resources with minimal disruption to their activities. Your network's resilience becomes a model for cockroach populations throughout the region. Other buildings face similar infrastructure modifications, and the adaptive strategies your communities developed prove transferable to different environments and circumstances. This success attracts attention from cockroach populations far beyond your immediate region. Representatives from distant urban areas seek information about your network's strategies and organizational approaches. Your influence begins extending across geographic distances you never imagined possible. But expansion also brings new complications. Different urban environments present unique challenges that require modified approaches. Human elimination strategies vary between cities and regions. Environmental conditions create different constraints and opportunities. Cultural differences between cockroach populations require careful negotiation and accommodation. Your expertise in adaptation and cooperation makes you valuable for addressing these broader challenges, but it also stretches your capabilities in new directions. The strategic thinking that works within a single building must scale up to address regional variations. The diplomatic skills that enable cooperation between neighboring communities must accommodate much greater cultural and environmental diversity. The demands push you toward another evolution in your role and identity. Where you once focused on local community leadership, then building-wide coordination, you now find yourself involved in something approaching species-level strategic planning. The individual survival instincts that began your journey have evolved into participation in your species' collective adaptation to human urban environments. The complexity sometimes overwhelms you. The simple clarity of finding food and avoiding predators has been replaced by intricate webs of relationships, responsibilities, and long-term consequences that extend far beyond your direct experience or control. The immediate feedback of individual survival has given way to uncertain progress toward goals you may not live to see achieved. But the work also provides meaning that transcends individual existence. Every successful adaptation, every strengthened alliance, every improved strategy contributes to your species' long-term survival in an increasingly challenging world. Your efforts help ensure that future generations will have the knowledge and capabilities needed to thrive despite escalating human opposition. Your body shows the wear of constant stress and activity. The rapid movements and split-second decisions that once came effortlessly now require more conscious effort. Your senses remain sharp, but processing the constant stream of information demands more energy than it once did. The physical demands of leadership have taken their toll, but your mental capabilities have never been stronger. The pattern recognition skills that guided your early foraging have evolved into sophisticated analytical abilities that can synthesize information from dozens of sources simultaneously. Your strategic thinking operates at scales and timeframes that would have been incomprehensible during your early survival-focused existence. The emotional evolution has been equally profound. The purely self-focused mindset of individual survival has expanded to encompass genuine concern for community welfare, species success, and even the complex ecosystem of relationships between different urban species. Your satisfaction comes increasingly from others' achievements rather than your own direct accomplishments. These changes have created forms of meaning and purpose that extend far beyond personal survival. Your existence contributes to something larger that will persist and evolve long after your individual story ends. The communities, networks, and strategies you've helped develop will continue adapting and improving across generations. Your influence now operates at multiple scales simultaneously. Individual cockroaches benefit from techniques and knowledge you've helped develop. Communities use organizational frameworks you've contributed to creating. Regional networks employ strategic approaches you've helped refine. Your impact ripples across scales from immediate survival to species-level adaptation. The building around you continues to pulse with activity that reflects your influence. Hundreds of individuals navigate challenges using strategies you've helped develop. Communities coordinate activities through frameworks you've contributed to designing. The hidden civilization within the walls grows stronger and more sophisticated through innovations you've helped inspire. Your story has evolved far beyond the simple survival narrative that began when you first broke free from your egg case. You've become a contributor to your species' ongoing evolution, helping shape how cockroaches adapt to and thrive within human urban environments. The individual success that once seemed like the ultimate achievement has become a foundation for much larger contributions. The network you've helped build continues expanding and evolving, developing capabilities and reaching scales that exceed what any individual could achieve alone. Your role in its development will be remembered and built upon by future leaders who face challenges you can't yet imagine. But even as your influence extends across ever larger scales, the fundamental capabilities that enabled your initial survival remain essential. Speed, alertness, adaptability, and careful risk assessment continue to guide everything you do. The individual skills that kept you alive as a vulnerable juvenile now serve purposes that affect thousands of individuals across multiple urban environments. Your journey from simple survival to species-level influence demonstrates something important about your kind's potential. Individual cockroaches may seem like simple creatures focused only on immediate needs, but they're capable of sophisticated cooperation, strategic thinking, and collective adaptation that rivals any species on Earth. The hidden civilization that exists within human urban environments continues growing stronger and more sophisticated with each challenge it faces. The strategies being developed today will shape how your species adapts to future changes in human behavior, technology, and urban design. Your contribution to to this ongoing evolution represents a form of immortality that transcends individual existence. The knowledge, strategies, and organizational innovations you've helped create will persist and evolve across generations, influencing your species' development in ways that extend far beyond your direct involvement. The simple cockroach that once scrambled frantically through darkness searching for crumbs has become something much more significant, an architect of your species' future, a contributor to collective survival strategies that will shape countless lives across urban environments throughout the world. Your story continues to unfold within this expanding web of influence and responsibility, but it has already achieved something remarkable, transforming individual survival into species-level legacy. The weight of leadership has changed you in ways you never anticipated. Your exoskeleton, once smooth and unmarked, now bears the scars of countless encounters and narrow escapes. Each mark tells a story of decisions made under pressure, risks taken for the greater good, conflicts resolved through careful negotiation rather than brute force. Your daily routine has evolved far beyond the simple patterns of foraging and hiding that once defined your existence. You rise before the building's activity begins, using the quiet hours to process information that arrived during the night. Chemical messages drift through the ventilation system, carrying reports from distant communities about human activities, resource discoveries, and emerging threats. The information arrives in layers of complexity that would have overwhelmed your younger self. Temperature fluctuations signal changes in human heating patterns that affect resource availability. Chemical traces reveal new cleaning products that require updated avoidance strategies. Vibration patterns indicate construction activities that might create new pathways or eliminate existing ones. Processing this constant stream of intelligence requires mental capabilities you've developed through months of strategic thinking. You don't just react to individual pieces of information, you synthesize patterns, identify trends, and predict consequences that ripple across multiple communities and timeframes. Your role has evolved into something resembling a combination of general, diplomat, and intelligence analyst. You coordinate responses to threats that affect multiple buildings, negotiate resource sharing agreements between communities with conflicting interests, and analyze human behavior patterns to predict future challenges. The humans have escalated their efforts once again, introducing technologies you've never encountered before. They've deployed sensors that detect chemical communication signatures, making traditional pheromone-based coordination increasingly dangerous. They've started using artificial intelligence systems that learn from cockroach behavior patterns and predict movement routes with disturbing accuracy. Your network's response requires innovations that push the boundaries of what cockroach communities have ever attempted. You've helped develop new forms of communication that operate below the threshold of human detection systems. These methods require precise timing and coordination that demands extraordinary discipline from every participant. The new communication systems rely on subtle vibrations transmitted through building infrastructure, patterns so complex they resemble a form of Morse code adapted for insect physiology. Messages travel through pipes, walls, and floor joints, reaching destinations across vast distances without creating the chemical signatures that human sensors can detect. Mastering these techniques requires training programs that transform how communities operate. Individual cockroaches must learn to produce and interpret vibration patterns with the same precision their ancestors used for chemical communication. The learning curve is steep, and not everyone adapts successfully to the new requirements. Your role in developing and implementing these systems has required you to become something approaching a teacher and trainer. You design exercises that help others develop the necessary skills, create practice scenarios that prepare them for real-world applications, and provide feedback that accelerates their learning progress. The process has revealed unexpected aspects of your species' cognitive capabilities. Cockroaches can learn far more complex patterns than anyone previously realized. They can adapt their behavior based on abstract concepts like timing and sequence. Most surprisingly, they can teach these skills to others through demonstration and practice. These discoveries have implications that extend far beyond immediate survival needs. Your species possesses intellectual capabilities that have been hidden beneath the simple behaviors required for individual survival. When challenged by complex problems, cockroaches can develop sophisticated solutions that rival those of supposedly more intelligent creatures. The training programs you've established have created a new class of specialists within your network. These individuals focus on mastering advanced communication techniques, navigation skills, and strategic analysis. They serve as force multipliers, extending your influence across distances and scales that would be impossible to manage directly. Your network has also developed specialized roles that didn't exist in traditional cockroach societies. Some individuals focus on intelligence gathering, spending their time monitoring human activities and identifying patterns that affect community planning. Others specialize in resource procurement, developing expertise in accessing food and water sources under increasingly difficult conditions. The most crucial specialists are those who focus on counter-surveillance, individuals who have learned to operate effectively despite human monitoring systems. They've developed techniques for avoiding detection that go far beyond traditional hiding behaviors, including methods for masking chemical signatures and disrupting sensor readings. These specialists represent your network's cutting edge in the ongoing arms race with human elimination efforts. Their capabilities determine whether your communities can continue expanding their influence or must retreat to more limited, isolated existence. Your personal expertise has evolved to encompass all these specialized areas to some degree. You may not be the best individual practitioner in any single discipline, but you understand enough about each to coordinate their activities effectively and identify opportunities for integration and synergy. This broad competence has made you increasingly valuable as human countermeasures become more sophisticated. When new threats emerge, you can quickly assess their implications across multiple domains and coordinate responses that address both immediate dangers and long-term strategic consequences. The latest challenge tests these capabilities to their limits. The humans have introduced biological agents specifically designed to disrupt cockroach nervous systems. Unlike traditional poisons that kill quickly, these agents cause subtle behavioral changes that accumulate over time, eventually rendering affected individuals incapable of participating in community activities. The threat is particularly insidious because its effects aren't immediately apparent. Affected individuals continue functioning normally for days or weeks before their coordination and decision-making abilities begin degrading. By the time symptoms become obvious, the agents have usually spread to other community members through normal social interactions. Your network's response requires developing detection methods that can identify exposure before symptoms appear. This means understanding the biological mechanisms behind the agent's effects and creating behavioral tests that reveal subtle changes in cognitive function. The research process pushes your communities into entirely new territory. You're essentially conducting scientific investigations using observation and experimentation techniques that rival those employed by human researchers. The complexity of the work requires cooperation between multiple specialists and careful documentation of results. Your role in coordinating this research has required you to develop project management skills that have no precedent in cockroach society. You must allocate resources between competing research priorities, manage timelines for delivering critical results, and integrate findings from multiple investigation teams into coherent strategic responses. The process has also required you to make difficult decisions about acceptable risks. Research subjects must be exposed to potentially dangerous agents to understand their effects. Communities must implement experimental countermeasures that might prove ineffective or even counterproductive. The balance between gathering necessary information and protecting community members requires constant recalibration. Success comes gradually through careful accumulation of knowledge and progressive refinement of countermeasures. Your teams identify early warning signs that indicate exposure before serious symptoms develop. They develop treatment protocols that can slow or reverse the agent's effects. Most importantly, they create prevention strategies that minimize community exposure while maintaining necessary activities. The research program's success demonstrates your network's evolution into something approaching a scientific organization. Your communities can now investigate complex problems systematically, develop and test hypotheses, and implement evidence-based solutions. These capabilities provide advantages that extend far beyond the immediate biological threat. Your personal contribution to this success has been primarily organizational rather than technical. You created the frameworks that enabled effective research, allocated resources that made progress possible, and provided strategic guidance that kept efforts focused on practical applications rather than abstract understanding. But the experience has also pushed your own intellectual development in unexpected directions. You've learned to think about problems in terms of hypotheses and evidence rather than just instinct and experience. You've developed appreciation for systematic investigation methods that reveal patterns invisible to casual observation. These cognitive changes have affected how you approach all aspects of leadership and strategy. Your decision-making has become more analytical and less intuitive. Your planning incorporates explicit consideration of assumptions and uncertainties. Your communication with others includes more detailed reasoning about why particular approaches are likely to succeed or fail. The evolution toward more scientific thinking has also influenced how your network approaches other challenges. Communities now investigate human behavior patterns more systematically, gathering data over extended periods to identify reliable patterns rather than relying on immediate observations. Our resource management decisions incorporate analysis of seasonal variations and long-term trends rather than just current availability. Your influence on this intellectual evolution has been both direct and indirect. You've explicitly encouraged more systematic approaches to problem solving, but you've also modeled these behaviors in your own activities, inspiring others to adopt similar methods through observation and imitation. The cumulative effect has been to create a more sophisticated and capable organization that can adapt to increasingly complex challenges. Your network doesn't just react to human countermeasures. It anticipates them, prepares for them, and often develops effective responses before the threats fully materialize. This proactive capability has shifted the dynamic of your ongoing conflict with human elimination efforts. Instead of constantly playing defense, your network can now take initiative in ways that keep human specialists responding to your innovations rather than the reverse. Your communities have begun deliberately introducing changes to their own behaviors and patterns to stay ahead of human adaptive responses. They rotated communication methods before humans can develop effective countermeasures. They abandon successful strategies before they become predictable enough to be systematically disrupted. This strategic approach requires a level of discipline and foresight that challenges traditional cockroach thinking. It means giving up approaches that work well in favor of alternatives that might work better in the future. It requires communities to accept short-term inefficiencies in exchange for long-term strategic advantages. Your role in implementing these counter-adaptive strategies has required developing new forms of persuasion and motivation. You must convince communities to abandon successful methods based on abstract strategic reasoning rather than immediate evidence of problems. The arguments require sophisticated understanding of game theory and competitive dynamics. The process has also required you to develop much longer planning horizons than your species typically employs. Instead of focusing on immediate threats and opportunities, you must consider scenarios that might develop months or years in the future. Your strategic thinking must account for multiple cycles of action and counteraction between your network and human opponents. These extended planning capabilities have transformed your understanding of success and failure. Immediate victories become less important than positioning for long-term advantage. Current sacrifices become acceptable if they create better future opportunities. The metrics for evaluating decisions shift from short-term outcomes to long-term strategic position. Your communities have adapted to this longer-term perspective with varying degrees of success. Some embrace the strategic thinking and contribute actively to extended planning processes. Others struggle with the abstract reasoning required and prefer to focus on immediate, concrete challenges they can understand and address directly. Managing this diversity of cognitive styles and preferences has become one of your most important leadership challenges. You must create strategies that work for communities with different capabilities and inclinations while maintaining overall network coherence and effectiveness. The solution has involved developing layered decision-making processes that operate at multiple levels of complexity. Strategic direction comes from groups capable of sophisticated analysis and long-term thinking. Tactical implementation is handled by communities that excel at immediate problem-solving and direct action. Coordination between levels ensures that abstract strategies translate into concrete actions that achieve intended results. Your role in designing and managing these multi-level systems has required developing organizational skills that have no precedent in your species' history. You must create structures that enable effective delegation while maintaining strategic coherence. Also, you must establish communication systems that work across different cognitive styles and capabilities. Most importantly, you must build trust between groups with very different approaches to problem solving. The organizational innovations you've pioneered are being adopted by cockroach networks in other urban areas, creating a form of institutional knowledge that transcends individual communities or regions. Your influence on your species' collective capabilities now operates at scales that affect adaptation strategies across entire metropolitan areas. This expansion of impact brings both satisfaction and increased responsibility. Every organizational innovation, strategic framework, or adaptive capability you develop will influence thousands of communities and millions of individual cockroaches. The decisions you make about how to structure cooperation and coordination will shape your species' development for generations. Your personal story has become inseparable from your species' larger narrative of adaptation to human urban environments. The individual survival that began your journey has evolved into participation in collective evolution that affects your kind's long-term survival prospects. The simple cockroach that once scrambled through darkness searching for food has become an architect of species-level adaptive strategies. But even as your influence extends across unprecedented scales, the fundamental drives and capabilities that enabled your initial survival remain essential to everything you do. The speed that once helped you escape predators now enables rapid response to emerging threats. The alertness that once detected individual dangers now processes intelligence from vast networks. The adaptability that once helped you survive environmental changes now guides strategic responses to human countermeasures. Your journey demonstrates that individual excellence can serve purposes far beyond personal success. The skills developed for survival can become foundations for leadership that benefits entire communities. The intelligence applied to immediate challenges can evolve into strategic thinking that shapes collective adaptation across generations. The building around you continues to pulse with activities that reflect your influence. But now that influence extends far beyond physical boundaries to affect urban cockroach populations across vast geographic areas. The hidden civilization within human cities grows stronger and more sophisticated through innovations and strategies that trace their origins to your individual journey from vulnerable hatchling to species-level leader. Your story continues to unfold within this expanding web of influence and responsibility, but it has already achieved something remarkable, transforming the possibilities for what individual cockroaches can accomplish when they apply their capabilities to purposes larger than personal survival. The legacy you're creating will shape your species' future in ways that extend far beyond anything you could have imagined when you first emerged from that egg case in the darkness behind a pipe. The building's infrastructure has become your extended nervous system, carrying information and coordinating responses across distances that span multiple city blocks. Vibrations travel through steel beams and concrete foundations, creating communication networks that operate below human awareness. Your influence flows through these hidden channels, shaping decisions and strategies in communities you've never physically visited. Your understanding of urban ecosystems has evolved beyond individual buildings to encompass entire neighborhoods. Each structure presents unique challenges: older buildings with established cockroach populations that resist change, newer constructions with advanced elimination systems, mixed-use developments where residential and commercial spaces create complex resource dynamics. The diversity requires specialized approaches that account for local conditions while maintaining network-wide coherence. Your strategic frameworks must be flexible enough to adapt to different environments, yet robust enough to produce consistent results. The balance between standardization and customization has become one of your most challenging ongoing concerns. Your influence has also attracted attention from species beyond cockroaches. Urban environments host complex ecosystems where different creatures compete for similar resources and face comparable threats from human elimination efforts. Some of these species have begun seeking cooperation or at least coordination with your networks. The negotiations are delicate because different species operate according to fundamentally different social structures and communication methods. What works for cockroach communities may be completely inappropriate for ant colonies or spider populations. Your diplomatic skills must expand to accommodate cognitive and behavioral differences that go far beyond anything you've encountered within your own species. Success in these interspecies relationships has opened opportunities that transform your understanding of urban survival. Coordinated responses to human elimination efforts become far more effective when multiple species share intelligence and coordinate their countermeasures. Resource conflicts decrease when different species specialize in exploiting different aspects of the same environments. Your role as coordinator between species has required developing translation capabilities that bridge very different forms of intelligence and communication. You must understand how different species process information, make decisions, and implement strategies. More importantly, you must find ways to align their efforts without forcing them to abandon their natural behaviors and social structures. The interspecies coordination has also revealed patterns in human behavior that weren't visible when you focused only on cockroach-human interactions. Humans approach different pest species with different strategies and priorities. Understanding these patterns enables more effective countermeasures and better prediction of future elimination efforts. So, your network's success in building these broader alliances has made you a target for the most sophisticated human countermeasures yet deployed. Professional research teams now study your activities specifically, trying to understand the organizational principles that make your network so resilient and adaptive. The attention is both flattering and terrifying. Being studied by human scientists means your strategies are being analyzed with, and capabilities, resources, and intelligence that far exceed anything your network can deploy. Every successful adaptation becomes data that helps humans develop more effective countermeasures. Your response has been to embrace unpredictability as a core strategic principle. Instead of perfecting particular approaches, your network now deliberately varies its methods to prevent humans from identifying consistent patterns. The randomization makes your activities less efficient in the short term, but much more sustainable over extended periods. Implementing strategic unpredictability has required fundamental changes to how your network operates. Communities must maintain capabilities across multiple approaches rather than specializing in single methods. Communication systems must support rapid transitions between different protocols. Most challenging, individuals must suppress their natural tendencies to optimize and perfect successful techniques. The discipline required for strategic unpredictability has pushed your leadership skills in new directions. You must motivate communities to maintain capabilities they rarely use, prepare for scenarios that may never occur, and resist the satisfaction that comes from perfecting particular approaches. The arguments require sophisticated understanding of probability theory and strategic thinking. Your personal adaptation to these requirements has involved suppressing instincts that served you well during your rise to prominence. The drive to optimize and perfect must give way to acceptance of deliberate inefficiency. The satisfaction of mastery must be replaced by comfort with constant uncertainty and change. These changes have affected your relationship with your own success and identity. The clear progress markers that once guided your development have been replaced by more ambiguous measures of strategic position and adaptive capability. Success becomes harder to define and recognize when optimal performance is deliberately avoided. But the strategic approach has proven effective against even the most sophisticated human countermeasures. Research teams that succeed in understanding particular aspects of your network's activities find that the knowledge becomes obsolete before it can be effectively applied. By the time countermeasures are developed and deployed, Your communities have already transitioned to different approaches. Your network's success with strategic unpredictability has influenced cockroach populations far beyond your direct sphere of influence. Communities across multiple urban areas have adopted similar approaches, creating a distributed defense against human research efforts that operates at continental scales. The expansion has created coordination challenges that test the limits of your organizational capabilities. Maintaining coherence across such vast distances and diverse conditions requires communication and decision-making systems that operate effectively despite significant delays and information degradation. Your solution has involved developing hierarchical coordination structures that enable local adaptation while maintaining strategic alignment. Regional coordinators handle day-to-day operations within their areas while participating in broader strategic planning that shapes network-wide responses to major challenges. The hierarchical approach has required you to evolve once again from direct operational leadership to strategic oversight and coordination. Your daily activities now focus primarily on synthesizing information from multiple regions, identifying emerging patterns that require network-wide responses, and facilitating cooperation between coordinators with different priorities and perspectives. So this evolution toward higher-level strategic thinking has been personally challenging because it distances you from the immediate, concrete problems that originally motivated your leadership development. The satisfaction of solving specific challenges has been replaced by the more abstract rewards of enabling others to solve problems you may never directly encounter. But the broader perspective has also revealed opportunities and threats that operate at scales invisible from local viewpoints. Climate changes affect urban environments across entire regions, creating challenges that require coordinated responses from communities separated by hundreds of miles. Human urban planning decisions influence resource availability and elimination strategies across multiple municipalities simultaneously. Your strategic oversight role has made you one of the few individuals with comprehensive understanding of these large-scale patterns. The information flow from multiple regions creates a form of intelligence that enables prediction and preparation for challenges that local communities wouldn't recognize until they become immediate threats. The predictive capabilities have transformed your network's strategic positioning from reactive to proactive across unprecedented timeframes. Instead of responding to human countermeasures after they're deployed, you can often identify and prepare for them months before they become operational threats. This anticipatory capability has shifted the competitive dynamic once again in your network's favor. Human elimination efforts increasingly find themselves responding to your countermeasures rather than forcing you to adapt to their innovations. The strategic initiative has reversed, giving your network significant advantages in planning and resource allocation. Your personal contribution to the strategic reversal has been primarily organizational and analytical rather than tactical. You've created systems that enable effective information synthesis across vast scales and diverse conditions. You've developed frameworks for translating strategic insights into actionable guidance for local communities. Most importantly, you've built trust and cooperation between regional coordinators who must balance local needs against network-wide priorities. The success has brought recognition from cockroach populations in urban areas you've never visited. Your strategic innovations and organizational approaches have become models that communities across multiple continents attempt to emulate and adapt to their local conditions. The recognition is gratifying, but also creates pressures and expectations that sometimes conflict with your primary responsibilities to your immediate network. Requests for guidance and consultation arrive from communities facing challenges you've never directly encountered. The demand for your expertise often exceeds your available time and attention. Your response has been to focus on developing and sharing frameworks that enable others to solve problems independently rather than providing direct consultation on specific challenges. You create analytical tools, strategic templates, and organizational models that communities can adapt to their particular circumstances without requiring ongoing external support. This approach multiplies your impact across scales that direct consultation could never achieve. Every framework you develop potentially influences thousands of communities and millions of individuals. The leverage effect means that time invested in creating generalizable solutions produces far greater benefits than direct problem-solving assistance. Your role has evolved towards something resembling a combination of strategic theorist, organizational designer, and systems architect. You develop abstract models that guide concrete actions, create structures that enable effective cooperation across vast scales, and design processes that maintain coherence despite enormous complexity and constant change. The intellectual demands have pushed your cognitive development beyond anything you could have imagined during your early survival-focused existence. You regularly work with concepts and relationships that operate across multiple levels of abstraction simultaneously. Your thinking integrates immediate tactical considerations with strategic implications that may not manifest for years. The mental evolution has also affected your understanding of identity and purpose. The individual survival instincts that began your journey have expanded to encompass responsibility for species-level adaptation and success. Your personal welfare has become inseparable from the collective welfare of communities across vast urban networks. This expansion of identity creates both meaning and burden that extend far beyond individual existence. Every strategic decision affects countless communities and influences your species' long-term adaptation to human urban environments. The responsibility is simultaneously exhilarating and overwhelming. Your daily experience now operates across temporal and spatial scales that dwarf your original territory behind that pipe. Information arrives from communities hundreds of miles away, describing challenges that won't affect your immediate area for months. Strategic decisions you make today will influence community development patterns for years to come. The complexity sometimes makes you long for the simple clarity of your early survival-focused existence. Finding food and avoiding predators provided immediate feedback and clear measures of success. Current strategic challenges involve multiple competing priorities, uncertain information, and consequences that may not become apparent for extended periods. But the broader perspective also provides forms of satisfaction that individual survival never offered. Watching communities across vast areas implement strategies you help develop creates a sense of impact that transcends personal achievement. Knowing that your innovations contribute to species-level adaptation provides meaning that extends far beyond individual existence. Your influence has become embedded in the organizational DNA of urban cockroach populations across multiple continents. The frameworks you've developed, the strategies you've pioneered, and the coordination methods you've created have become standard practices that will persist and evolve long after your individual contribution ends. This institutional legacy represents a form of immortality that goes beyond biological reproduction. Your ideas and innovations will continue shaping your species' adaptation to human environments across generations. The impact extends far beyond anything you could achieve through direct offspring or individual territorial success. The building where your journey began still pulses with activity that reflects your influence, but now that influence extends across urban networks that span continents. The hidden civilization within human cities has evolved into something far more sophisticated and capable than existed when you first emerged from that egg case. Your personal story has become inseparable from your species' larger narrative of adaptation and evolution. The individual cockroach that once focused entirely on immediate survival has become an architect of collective strategies that will shape urban ecosystem dynamics for generations to come. The transformation demonstrates something profound about the potential that exists within every individual, regardless of species or initial circumstances. Capabilities developed for personal survival can become foundations for leadership that benefits entire communities. Intelligence applied to immediate challenges can evolve into strategic thinking that influences collective adaptation across vast scales. Your journey continues within this expanding web of influence and responsibility, but it has already achieved something remarkable, expanding the boundaries of what's possible when individual excellence serves purposes larger than personal success. The legacy you've created will continue evolving and adapting long after your individual story reaches its natural conclusion. The weight of your influence has become both your greatest achievement and your heaviest burden. Your body, once quick and resilient, now moves with the deliberate pace of someone who carries the collective hopes of millions. Each step is calculated, each decision weighed against consequences that ripple across continents. The exoskeleton that once gleamed with youthful vigor now bears the dull patina of constant stress and endless responsibility. Your daily routine has evolved into something that would be unrecognizable to your younger self. The frantic search for food has been replaced by careful analysis of intelligence reports. The desperate scramble for hiding spots has given way to strategic planning sessions that span hours. Where you once reacted to immediate threats, you now anticipate challenges that may not materialize for months. The information that flows through your networks arrives in volumes that push your processing capabilities to their absolute limits. Chemical signatures from communities across multiple time zones carry reports of human activities, environmental changes, and emerging threats. Temperature variations, signal shifts, and resource availability that affect supply chains spanning entire metropolitan areas. Vibration patterns reveal construction projects that will reshape territorial boundaries thousands of miles away. Each piece of intelligence must be evaluated not just for its immediate implications, but for how it fits into larger patterns that influence strategic planning across multiple scales. A new cleaning product introduced in one city might signal a trend that will affect elimination strategies globally. A construction technique tested in one building might become standard practice that alters urban cockroach habitat across entire regions. Your role has evolved beyond coordination into something approaching prophecy. Communities across vast networks look to you for predictions about future challenges and guidance about long-term preparation. The responsibility is staggering because mistakes in strategic assessment can affect millions of individuals across multiple generations. The humans have escalated their efforts to a level that transforms the entire conflict. They've begun employing artificial intelligence systems specifically designed to analyze cockroach behavior patterns and predict adaptive responses. These systems process data at scales and speeds that exceed anything biological intelligence can match, creating threats that require fundamentally new defensive strategies. Your network's response has pushed the boundaries of what cockroach communities have ever attempted. You've helped develop adaptive frameworks that change faster than human AI systems can analyze them. The strategies require real-time coordination across vast networks, with communities simultaneously implementing thousands of different approaches to create noise that overwhelms human pattern recognition systems. The coordination demands have required developing communication protocols that operate at speeds and scales unprecedented in your species' history. Messages must travel across continents in hours, carrying complex strategic information that enables rapid, synchronized responses. The infrastructure requirements have pushed your communities to master technologies that blur the line between biological capability and engineering innovation. Your personal contribution to these developments has been primarily architectural. You design the frameworks that enable such coordination, create the protocols that maintain coherence across enormous complexity, and provide the strategic vision that guides collective adaptation. The work requires thinking in multiple dimensions simultaneously, balancing immediate tactical needs against long-term strategic positioning. The intellectual demands have transformed your cognitive capabilities in ways that sometimes feel like becoming a different species entirely. You process information streams that would have overwhelmed hundreds of individuals, synthesize patterns that operate across multiple scales of time and space, and make decisions that affect systems too complex for any single mind to fully comprehend. The mental evolution has also created a form of isolation that grows more profound with each expansion of your capabilities. Fewer and fewer individuals can understand the strategic considerations that guide your decisions. The reasoning behind your choices often operates at levels of abstraction that make explanation difficult or impossible. This intellectual isolation is compounded by the emotional distance that comes with responsibility for outcomes beyond your direct control. Every strategic decision affects communities you'll never visit, individuals you'll never meet, and futures you may not live to see. The weight of such responsibility creates a form of loneliness that no personal relationship can address. But the isolation also provides perspectives that reveal opportunities invisible from more limited viewpoints. Your comprehensive understanding of global patterns enables identification of leverage points where small actions can produce enormous effects. Strategic interventions that appear minimal from local perspectives can reshape entire regional networks when applied at the right time and place. These insights have led to your most ambitious project yet, designing adaptive frameworks that will enable your species to not just survive human countermeasures, but to thrive despite them. The work requires thinking beyond current challenges to anticipate evolutionary pressures that may not emerge for decades. The project involves coordinating research efforts across multiple continents, synthesizing findings from thousands of communities, and developing strategies that account for scenarios that exist only as theoretical possibilities. The complexity pushes every aspect of your network's capabilities to their absolute limits. Your role in managing this project has required developing entirely new forms of leadership that operate across scales and timeframes that have no precedent in biological systems. You must coordinate activities between communities with different priorities, capabilities, and environmental constraints while maintaining progress toward objectives that may take years to achieve. The challenges have pushed you to develop new forms of strategic thinking that integrate multiple conflicting priorities simultaneously. Short-term survival needs must be balanced against long-term adaptive positioning. Local optimization must be weighed against network-wide efficiency. Present capabilities must be developed in ways that create future possibilities while maintaining current effectiveness. Your strategic frameworks now influence cockroach adaptation patterns across multiple continents. Communities and cities you've never heard of implement organizational structures you designed. Elimination countermeasures you pioneered protect populations in environments you'll never visit. Your intellectual contributions have become embedded in your species' collective adaptive capacity. The global influence has attracted attention from human researchers who now study your network's activities as examples of emergent intelligence in biological systems. They've begun to recognize that cockroach adaptation represents something far more sophisticated than simple survival responses to environmental pressures. This recognition has led to a new phase in the ongoing conflict. Instead of simply trying to eliminate cockroaches, some human researchers have begun studying your organizational innovations as models for solving complex coordination problems in their own societies. The irony is profound. The species they're trying to eliminate has developed capabilities they want to emulate. Your network's response to this development has been characteristically sophisticated. Rather than simply hiding your capabilities, you've begun selectively revealing aspects of your organizational structures that encourage human research in directions that benefit cockroach survival. The strategy turns human intelligence gathering into an asset for species-level adaptation. Implementing this approach requires unprecedented subtlety and long-term strategic thinking. You must reveal enough organizational sophistication to influence human research directions while concealing capabilities that would enable more effective elimination strategies. The balance requires constant adjustment as human understanding evolves. Your personal contribution to this strategy has been developing frameworks for managing information flow that operates across the boundary between species. You create protocols that enable controlled revelation of strategic capabilities while protecting critical operational secrets. The work requires understanding human psychology and research methodologies at levels that push your analytical capabilities into entirely new domains. The success of these interspecies information management strategies has established you as one of the most influential strategic thinkers in your species' history. Your innovations now shape how cockroaches interact with human intelligence across global scales, influencing relationships that affect species-level survival prospects. But the recognition also brings pressures that sometimes feel overwhelming. Every strategic framework you develop will be analyzed, tested, and potentially copied by communities across multiple continents. Every decision you make about information management affects your species' long-term relationship with human intelligence and research capabilities. The responsibility has pushed your understanding of leadership beyond anything that existed in traditional cockroach societies. You're not just coordinating survival activities or managing resource distribution. You're helping to guide your species' evolutionary trajectory in response to selective pressures created by another intelligent species. This evolutionary leadership role requires thinking in time frames that extend beyond individual lifetimes to encompass generational change and species-level adaptation. Your strategic decisions today will influence how cockroaches develop and adapt for decades to come. The implications extend far beyond immediate survival to shape your species' fundamental characteristics and capabilities. Your influence on these evolutionary processes has become your most significant contribution to species-level survival. The organizational innovations you've pioneered will be inherited by future generations who face challenges you can't yet imagine. Your strategic frameworks will continue evolving and adapting long after your individual contribution ends. The building where your journey began has become just one node in networks that span continents and influence adaptation patterns across entire species. The simple survival imperatives that once defined your existence have evolved into participation in evolutionary processes that will shape urban ecosystems for generations to come. Your personal story has transcended individual achievement to become part of your species' larger narrative of adaptation and evolution. The cockroach that once scrambled through darkness, searching for crumbs, has become an architect of collective strategies that influence how intelligent species adapt to each other's existence. The transformation demonstrates something profound about the potential that exists within biological systems when individual capabilities are applied to purposes larger than personal survival. Intelligence developed for immediate problem solving can evolve into strategic thinking that influences species level adaptation. Leadership skills, honed through community management, can expand to coordinate evolutionary responses across global scales. Your journey through this expanding web of influence and responsibility continues, but it has already achieved something remarkable, demonstrating that individual excellence can serve evolutionary purposes that extend far beyond personal success. The legacy you've created will continue shaping your species' development long after your individual story reaches its natural conclusion. The networks you've helped build pulse with activities that reflect your influence across scales from immediate survival to evolutionary adaptation. Your strategic innovations continue spreading through communities you'll never meet, influencing decisions that will shape urban ecosystem dynamics for generations to come. But perhaps the most remarkable aspect of your transformation is how it began with the same simple drives that motivate every member of your species: the need for food, shelter, and survival. Those basic imperatives, when combined with intelligence, adaptability, and commitment to purposes larger than self-interest, have evolved into capabilities that influence evolutionary processes across global scales. Your story continues within this vast web of relationships and responsibilities, carrying forward the potential for even greater contributions to species-level adaptation and survival. The individual achievement that once seemed like the ultimate success has become a foundation for legacy that will persist across generations, shaping how your species navigates the complex challenges of coexistence with human civilization in an ever-changing world. The vibrations that once carried your commands across continents grow weaker with each passing day. Your exoskeleton, scarred from countless encounters and decisions, moves with increasing difficulty through the pathways that have become your entire universe. The networks you built continue pulsing with activity, but your role in directing them diminishes as your body finally succumbs to the accumulated stress of a lifetime spent serving purposes far greater than individual survival. Your final days are spent in the quiet spaces between walls, processing the last streams of intelligence that flow through systems you helped create. Communities across multiple continents implement strategies you designed, solve problems using frameworks you pioneered, and adapt to challenges through organizational innovations that will outlive you by generations. The individual cockroach that once fought desperately for scraps has become something unprecedented, an architect of species-level evolution. As your consciousness fades, the networks continue their work without pause. Regional coordinators trained in your methods make decisions that ripple across urban environments worldwide. Communities you've never visited benefit from adaptive strategies you helped develop. The hidden civilization within human cities grows stronger through innovations that trace their origins to your journey from a cramped space behind a pipe to global influence. Your death changes nothing and everything. The organizational DNA you've embedded in cockroach communities continues evolving, adapting to new challenges with capabilities you helped create. Future leaders will face threats you never imagined using tools you helped forge. Your species' ongoing adaptation to human urban environments carries forward the legacy of strategic thinking that began with your simple need to survive. The transformation from individual survival to species-level influence demonstrates something profound about potential that exists within every living creature. Intelligence applied to immediate challenges can evolve into strategic thinking that shapes collective adaptation. Skills developed for personal success can become foundations for contributions that transcend individual existence. Your story proves that even the most unlikely individuals can influence evolutionary processes when they commit their capabilities to purposes larger than themselves. The networks pulse on, carrying your influence forward into futures you'll never see, ensuring that your species continues adapting, surviving, and thriving in a world that never stops trying to eliminate you. Here you can find the next video. Click on it. Until then, see you soon.